Good morning, everybody. It feels strange not to have food in front of us.
I know. It's Oz as well. I'm glad I've stepped out of Kansas and I've joined the bright lights of Oz.
So bright and beautiful.
Are they the flying monkeys out there, I guess, is the question.
All right, well, thank you so much. Now, many of you in the UK know Trinity Mirror. For those of you visiting from outside may not be as familiar with the new vision and path forward. Tell us a little bit about Trinity Mirror and where you're heading.
So Trinity Mirror is one of the UK's largest publishers, publishes national and regional titles in print, but increasingly, obviously, like any business, has shifted over to digital. And I guess our core, very simply, I guess we're a very good test tube. If anyone wants to look at the publishing market, I think we are a very good test tube business because ultimately we are a PLC, we're a public company, we have to turn profit every year. And we don't really have any other revenue streams other than advertising. So if you're looking for a health check on the business and a way for a business to potentially succeed, I think we're a very, very good example. But fundamentally our challenge, and like many publishers, is we have to offset a traditional revenue stream that is in decline, and we recognize, and I don't think any publisher has their head in the sand about that, of print as that declines, and we need to offset that with digital growth. So we fundamentally need to return our business to top-line revenue growth. We're very profitable every year, and that's fine. We've done that through managing cost very, very well, and I think we've done that very, very well. But we need to get back to top-line revenue growth, and that obviously means digital acceleration. Mm-hmm. How do we move the digital, dime or cents or whatever you want to call to more of an ability to offset our print? So
okay.
That's fundamentally it.
Now, I learned the other night that Piers is an avid skier.
Yeah, very true.
So if the world of a newspaper publisher or legacy newspaper publisher is a ski hill, what does the terrain look like right now? Paint us a picture.
Okay, we're in a perfect storm, right? No question. We have stepped off the cable car, and for those of you skiing in a whiteout, that's kind of how it feels right now for a publisher, right? Let's be very clear. You've got biting winds. It's about minus 50. You can't see where you're going. The path isn't very clear. But nevertheless, you're still confident. You're confident in your own ability because ultimately we know what our focus is. And I think, for publishers, the ability to focus on your core business, which is just generating the audience, you know what you can do. What is not clear yet is that sustainable business model. So the question is how you get down the hill, mm-hmm. right? Looking good without breaking a leg. What is not helped, though, of course, is you have not only the weather conditions, you've literally got people shouting at you from every two ways, oh, you need to do this, you need to bend your knees, you need to keep your hips down the mountain. You've got ad blockers trying to pop your bindings off at the same time. So you've got that perfect storm, and that's kind of how it feels. But at the same time, you're fairly confident in your ability, and you know you will get down the hill. You're just not quite sure how. Okay.
So what are some of the key strategies?
So I think there are a number of things, right? And I could bore you to tears, I guess, in detail. But I think clearly I think it starts with people. Mm-hmm. So a challenge for businesses like ours is naturally we need to get people into our business, both on the product side and the editorial side, but also on the commercial side, who understand the ecosystem, all right? And that's a challenge for publishers because you have fantastic businesses like yours that are appealing to the young graduate market. Are you going to go and work for an ad tech business? Are you going to go work for the Borg at Google and Facebook? Or are you going to come to a publisher, right? So there's that challenge of attracting talent. But you start with people. Then it comes down to product, of which, of course, it's consumer product and ad product. And those things, I guess, in digital, and it's a learning, I guess, for businesses like ours. And I should disclaim I'm new to the publishing world. I've always been in digital. So it's a challenge for businesses like ours to understand that you can't separate the consumer product from the ad product, right? In print, that's very easy, right? It was very easy to have that separation, but they are intertwined. So you need good people, good products, clearly, ad and consumer. And then, of course, you have the data and the ad tech structure that sits behind your digital business. And I think that was talked about today. We spend a lot of time, and I've got colleagues in the audience, we spend a lot of time thinking about that question of ad tech and the technology used, how it's used, and what powers it in terms of the data.
Okay, so obviously that's been a big conversation already this morning. Brian gently laid down the gauntlet against DoubleClick. What's your point of view on ad tech strategy?
So I guess in defense of publishers, I sense that when I talk to ad tech businesses, there's that sense of frustration that, oh, you guys are so stupid. If only you did this. If only you added an extra line of code. If only you stepped out of your black and white world and into the colorful world. And I think in defense of publishers, what you've got to understand is that the ad tech world does look very, not confused, because I think we all understand it, but it is very, you get noise from every direction. And it is not as simply as easy saying, you need to step out of that partner and step with us, because the reality is for most publishers, we have very, very short-term revenue pressures. We can't afford, certainly for us as a PLC, it may be different if you're a business that doesn't necessarily need to turn a profit in the short term. We don't have the luxury of just dropping our revenues by X% because we launched a new technology product, which may pay off in the future, but it's going to hit your Q3 and Q4 revenues because we just can't afford to do that. So I think our challenge is just about seeing the wood from the trees, right? And again, the pessimist in me, and when we look at our business in 3 to 5 years, it's all about yield, right? Fundamentally, it's all about yield. That's right. Number one, everything we do, the people, the products, and the data is all about how do we get more price for our pound of inventory. The question that we have is, does the ad technology stack, is that going to raise yields? Now, of course, we hope, and we listen at events like this, and head of bidding and developments like that. The pessimist in me sees that, well, look, yields have declined year over year for the last 5 to 6 years, and in that time, we've been promised SSPs, we've been promised programmatic direct, we've been promised viewability, viewable impressions, brand building, native advertising, and yet yields continue to decline. So the pessimist in me goes, if the Wizard of Oz analogy, are we just going to get and pull off the curtain, and the ad tech business is not a wizard, it's just a guy behind an organ who's quite old, and not that you're old, and not anyone in AppNexus is old, but you know what I mean? It's like, and that's again, that frustration that I get is that, I don't think publishers, and I talk to a lot of publishers, we're not stupid, and we're not blind to the Google and the Facebook threat at all. We're very aware of it, but we do have to hit Q3 and Q4.
Understood. And who's your ad server?
DFP.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we're
So
very in
yields?
with Facebook Instant Articles, right?
So,
Mirror is one of the leading publishers.
Why are your yields going down quarter over quarter? I'm pretty sure Google's yields are going up quarter over quarter.
Well, yeah, I guess, there are a number of differences, right? And when I look at the Google and Facebook, so I kind of have we absolutely have to compete with them, and we have to learn what they're doing and why they're doing it and find alternatives. But we also do have to collaborate with them, for sure. And in our case, it may be Facebook with Instant Articles, and we understand the people who say, oh, what you're doing, you're mad, are you crazy? Well, if someone can make me more money than Facebook, I will do it, right? I mean, we will do it. We're not in love with Facebook, but the reality is, pound for pound, you can give inventory to Facebook and put it through Facebook Instant Articles. And don't forget, for us as a publisher who's fairly UK-based, Facebook has a volume question, right? So it's not all about yield. I would halve my yields if I could treble my volume. So there's that question. We're not blind to it, but they have a number of advantages, right? They're a global pub. I think it was talked about before. The reality is there are probably too many publishers, right?
Okay.
In the UK, if we rolled up all the publishers into one business, we'd be bigger than Facebook from a revenue point of view.
So is it going to happen?
Yeah, the UK market, for those of you familiar, is quite challenged in terms of ownership of the publishing. You obviously have the BBC, which is a public sector broadcast. You have the Guardian, which is run effectively on a trust basis. So then that's why they don't turn a profit yet. Maybe sometime in the future. So there are a number of ownership challenges, which means M&A is challenged. But we bought a business recently called Local World, which was a fantastic publishing business, very profitable, some great people, especially some of them are here today, so I won't flatter them, but on the programmatic side, which again, when we look at talent and people, acquisition for people is really important. So I think it will happen.
Tell us a little bit more about that one, because it sounds like it hit a number of the boxes that you outlined before in terms of product and ad tech and talent and and consolidation as well.
For sure. I mean, and it was very, very profitable, right? And came with no debt and no pension liabilities, which again is fairly rare for legacy businesses in the UK. There is often some heavy-duty finance challenges to M&A because of debt. So yeah, so Local World was a really good, and I won't patronize and say good little business, because they're not a little business, they're a very significant business. But the symmetry between our two businesses was perfect, and I think, well, actually ask the guys, but I think the integration has been fairly good.
Okay, and tell us about how they fit into your overall programmatic and ad strategy.
So how we balance programmatic for a publisher, I think, is one of the biggest challenges that we face, because not only do we have an ecosystem in the commercial side of print, and that still has a lot of resource, right? And we make by far and away more money still out of print than we do out of digital, both profit and total. Then you have your digital part. You want to bring them together because our customers, we call ourselves Trinity Mirror Solutions because we believe we sell solutions rather than necessarily products. And that's partly because we want our events business, our print stuff, and our digital to come together. And then how do we fit programmatic within that structure? I think probably at Trinity Mirror we struggle to know where that sits and lands. But we now have a dedicated programmatic team, which is by far and away bigger than any other digital sales structure within that team.
Can you tell us how big, what technologies they're using?
Well, you need to get the guys who are better placed to talk about the pure tech, but clearly we have about 15 people, which, considering the size of our business is quite a significant digital investment. We've used a lot of stuff over the years, right? And it's been a case of chucking a lot of stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And I think the guys have come in, and they're really, the Local World guys especially, are teaching us in terms of a lot of what is the best optimum structure to do. But we listen at events like this. I have a very helicopter view of this stuff. I'm not qualified nor competent to get in the weeds, but I just wonder, my challenge is, and our challenge is that yield question. When we look 5 years out, do we see yields continuing to decrease, or do they stabilize, or do they increase? And there are a huge number of factors in that, and it's gaming that and understanding if everything that we hear is true, then we should be optimistic, countered by the pessimism that I raised earlier.
One of the trends, obviously, in the UK has been partnerships, alliances between publishers. Where do you sit on that?
So I'll speak, I think both, I can probably speak corporately and personally. I personally am a very big fan of cooperation. I talked about it before. Not necessarily with your frenemies like Facebook and Google, but with your like-for-like businesses. As I said, I think there are too many publishers in the UK and probably globally, frankly. We have to get better at working together. Now, how that happens is the problem. And we've had a number of alliances that have floated in the UK, and obviously there are some in Europe and Germany and France and stuff. And I think that is definitely the future. If M&A can't happen, and maybe it won't because of all the reasons I outlined before, then I think it is inevitable that cooperation happens. And I see that day to day, and it's happening at the moment in terms of, I've been very passionate around the ad blocking thing. It kind of frustrates me that publishers, we're all doing our own little thing. We're all trialing different things in our own little isolation. It's like, why are we not sharing all this data? And if you use that as one example, 6 months ago, there was all nervousness about, we're trying stuff, but I can't talk about the results. And I'm like, why? It's like, we're all doing the same thing. We're all having the same problems. So I think you are seeing it, and there will be more. But we have to get the value prop right for these alliances. I think some alliances have looked good on paper, and they have a very cool name, and everyone gets excited about them. But it's like, there's no good banding together just publishers and saying, you need to buy from us, because the advertiser will go, why? There's got to be some reason. Obviously, data is going to be critical to that. Okay,
so we've got a lot of fellow publishers in the audience, people coming from traditional media, transitioning businesses to digital. You saw Shane Smith from Vice recently predict a bloodbath over the next 12 months in traditional media. Do you think that is going to happen, number one? And number two, what tips can you share with the folks here as they walk away and think about transformation of their businesses?
Well, I guess on the bloodbath question, it doesn't look great, right? The reality is, as I said before, the market is, but it depends what you define as a bloodbath. Do I think there will be fewer publishers in the world as separate entities in the next 2 to 3 years? Yes, I do. I think that's inevitable. Whether that's a bloodbath, I guess, depends on whether you're unfortunate enough not to be carrying on in these new organizations. I think the positive side is that there's huge opportunity for us as publishers to figure it out together. As for tips, look, I'm not arrogant enough to, we've not nailed it, right? I mean, you know, until we get to top line revenue growth, then I'm not going to sit here and tell any publisher, what they should and shouldn't do. But I guess all I can say is when we look at it, it is staying focused on what you do, which for us is audience generation. So not being distracted by, should you acquire a data business or, because I think that gets the valuations of bonkers and all that kind of stuff. So I think you need to be clear and comfortable what you do, which is creating audiences. And I think once you do that and once you figure out the right people, and I know it is a cliche, we're going to have to try more stuff, right? But that is a problem because we have limited resources. And it comes back to that, one more line of code argument. Yeah, of course it's one more line of code, but it's not. That still needs QA. That still needs someone to do it, and they've got a million other things to do it. And we're not as well staffed as a VC company or a Google or Facebook. So I think it's just about, and stay positive, right? I think there is a danger. When I saw the previous presenter with the Black Death coming up on the death sentence, I was like, oh my God, and it's not that bad, right? We haven't yet got boils under our armpits, but It is a challenge. It is a challenge, but I think you just have to stay positive and be comfortable and talk to as many people as possible. Right? I'm very open, and if you're in IABs, again that frustration where people don't talk at IABs, it's like, why do you not talk at the IABs? Right? It's like no one's hiding the fact. There's no publisher that's absolutely nailed it. So let's just keep talking.
All right. Well, I hope the positive force in you wins out over the next year.
Yeah.
We appreciate your partnership and that of Local World as well, and hope that when we're back here next year, we're in Oz and not Kansas.
For sure.
Okay.
Thanks,
everyone.
Sure.